Okay, heavy equipment fanatics, this could be a fun one for you. This is Tamiya's new Volvo A60H hauler, and it's built on their G6-01 platform. It's pretty cool. It's a mix between a scale look and a fun chassis, basically. And we've had this chassis here on the channel a number of times. We've had the Kong head, the King Yellow, and the Dyna head, and it's basically the same exact chassis. It's a very long chassis with the drivetrain inside of it, which of course in turn drives all the wheels. So I'm not going to go over this in great detail. What I'm going to do is throughout this video, I'm going to post up cards, and that's going to lead you to our other reviews so you can see all the different versions of this chassis that are available. You'll be able to find out details, and we even did some upgrades on one of them as well. So what I'm going to do here is just give you a brief overview of some of the cool features of this chassis. Now, the whole chassis spans the entire length of the vehicle, and inside of it is the drivetrain. All the different gears that basically finally get to the wheels and power it from the motor that sits right over here. There are still bushings throughout this entire kit, no ball bearings, but that is an option that you could go and get. There are metal dog bones on here and metal out drives, so that's great for putting power to the wheels. The wheels have a 12mm hex, and as you can see, these are a chevron style of tread on the tire. We've got Tamiya's classic wheels on here as well, which gives it a great look. I think it really fits this Volvo A60H. But onto the suspension. So it's independent suspension on all 6 wheels. They are friction shocks. They've got the rubber tube on the inside for friction with a little bit of grease, but it gets the job done, and it works kind of well in this platform from what we've tested before. The steering is pretty simple. The servo is mounted over here on the side of the chassis, and then down in the center is a single crank that turns the front wheels, obviously. There is an option to go and add an additional servo in the rear so you could have 4-wheel steer on this. They give you the parts in the kit. You just got to make sure you have the right radio equipment in order to do that if you want to. And that basically rounds out, the true features of this. Like I said, it comes with the motor. You are going to need the rest of the electronics. Now onto the big changes here, and let's start off with the body. So obviously it's got this A60H cab on the front end, and it comes pre-painted from the factory, which is so cool. It saves so much time, and it's the perfect color. It's spot on right out of the box. You do have to go and put on the decals, and that would probably take you a lot of time because you have to go ahead, cut them out, and then form them over to the body. But again, that paint work is done for you. And then right below the body here is this front bumper, basically. It's kind of mounted to their spring assembly. We've seen that on many of Tamiya kits, but it's a very cool skid style front bumper. And then in the back here, we've got this dump bed, which is really, really cool. You can go put some stuff in there and drive around if you want to, but what's really neat is this tilts up basically, and it secures the battery as well. So I think that's pretty trick how they integrated all that. Got this little body post set up that secures the dump bed there with 2 body clips. But you just swing it up. There's a foam pad under there to secure the battery to the chassis, and then they give you these long pistons. These are friction pistons as well. They got a little O-ring on the inside, so when you put the bed up, it stays up, and then you forcefully have to push it back down. So that's a pretty cool little setup, and it looks scale. It looks like it's part of the real truck. Now, the only other big changes is that they go and they mount this bed to the rear body mounts. We're used to, on their other vehicles, that's where body posts are, but obviously the bed mounts to that back there. And then up front, they now have a plate, and that's where you could go and mount the electronics. So I've got a Tekin PXR speed controller in here, so that'll give me a nice slow throttle control. And again, I'm using the stock motor, and then I've got a Futaba radio system in here, and I actually got a Reedy servo here out of a crawler to swing the steering. But here's that little plate, and then right below the plate, mounted to the original body mount setup, are these little plates that have the new body posts attached to it. So it's pretty simple, pretty neat, and how they bolted everything up. So everything looks very good once it's all set up and you have this thing built up. So I think it looks very cool. I'm a huge fan of the G6-01 chassis. They are just so much fun to drive, and I'm actually a big fan of Tamiya's models as well. I got the GF-01 back there, so I've already got some heavy equipment that I've been messing around with. That is a lot of fun, but we're going to go take this out. We're going to go have some fun with it and see how it handles the off-road and hopefully a construction site. Ever since the Tamiya Hauler arrived here at the RC Driver Workshop, I've been kind of looking around locally trying to find a construction site to go run it at, and I finally found one, and I was like, yes, I'm going to go run it here, and there's going to be construction vehicles in the background, and every time I went over there to go and drive it, like full-on work was going on, so I couldn't go and drive it at the construction site. So I went to Plan B, and that was the BMX track and local park. And there I found a bunch of mounds and dirt hills and little jumps and stuff to just drive this thing over and have a lot of fun with. And that's what it is. When it comes down to it, Tamiya vehicles are just so much fun. From the building process, which this vehicle was so much fun to build, it's kind of just fun and exciting to just drive this thing around full punch. It's not a speed demon or anything like that. It's just cool to watch. That's what I think a lot of people get excited about with Tamiya vehicles. They're scale-like, they handle well, they steer well, and in the end, you know, you have a great time. That's what this hobby is all about. So the G6-01 platform, performance-wise, it's got a really wide steering radius to it, and you can, like I said earlier, go and put the rear steer on there, and that really helps tighten up the cornering of this. But I mean, again, it's a dump truck, so just going wide around turns at full throttle, it's pretty fun, and it's totally acceptable as far as the steering limitations on it. It'd probably be good to get the stiffer servo saver on here. They do have options for that, and that will help with some of that steering loss when you are driving around with just front steer on there. As far as the speed goes, I left the 540 silver can motor in there. I ran it on both a 2S LiPo. I ran it on a nickel metal hydride battery, and you know, it's fun to just bomb around the backyard with it, bomb around the dirt with. And I was going off of some little bumps and jumps and stuff, and I was getting a little bit of air with this thing. But what was really cool is when you hit a pile of dirt, you know, this front bumper just blasts dirt, and that's very cool, especially if you're taking video with this thing. You can really slow it down, you know, in your video editing, and you can watch that dirt fly. That's very cool. And suspension-wise, performance-wise, I didn't roll it, so that's always a plus. It's got a decent stance to it, so it handles pretty well for the speed that it's at. And, you know, these friction shocks, they do a decent job. It bounces around a little bit, but that's part of the fun and excitement of driving this thing. And overall, it's just really cool. I mean, there's no wear or tear other than, you know, some scratches on the bumper and stuff. And I do actually still have all the plastic bushings in here. So if I go and put a ton of packs through this thing, that is one thing that I'm going to have to watch out for. One thing you should have to watch out for if you use the plastic bushings is watch for wear so it doesn't eventually start to take out gears or anything like that. You can, of course, go and build this thing with ball bearings. Tamiya has ball bearings for it, or you go to Fast Eddie. They have bearing kits for the G6-01 platforms. But again, it's just a fun build. It's fun to drive. And if you like hauler trucks, it's really up your alley. And again, it was just a great experience, and it's really a perfect model for any Tamiya fan.